Hey NAI football fans, Cory Thorpe here with another edition of the NAIF Ball Podcast, powered by AdCraft USA, your custom apparel, merch, and uniform experts. Our friends at AdCraft have been with us for many years now. They've run web stores for us multiple times. These guys are NAI fans and family who are experts in the apparel and merchandise world. AdCraft allows you to take the hassle out of ordering. Let their knowledgeable design and customer service staff handle everything from hosting the store online, shipping the product, and helping your customers so you can get back to the game. Find them online at adcraftusa.com. All right, NAI football fans, we are back. We are nearing the home stretch. We are a couple days away from August, and August means football. Fall camp has started up across the nation. It is, man, we're almost there. Got Matt Schwartzler back with me, and we are going to go hard and fast here on the Sooner. A little bit of a different look for the Sooner since we started, picking up a couple teams, starting off with the new entrants this year, the North American Stallions.
Yeah, this was a North American team that we didn't really know what to really expect from them last year, and obviously they didn't have a great showing, but given their circumstances, kind of makes sense. They did win a game against a team in this conference. In this
Yep.
conference last year, but infamously put up that 91-0 performance against FCS Portland State last year. I can appreciate that this team wants all the smoke from anybody. They'll play anybody. And when you return pretty much everybody, because it's just how it goes going into this year, I think you'll be just fine and you'll be in a good position to move on up in the world.
Look, I mean, this was a team that a couple years ago ESPN was calling the Bishop Sycamore of college athletics. I think North American has earned their way onto the field and have earned the right to not be called Bishop Sycamore anymore. You've officially joined a conference. You are going to be somebody this year, and I mean it's a great place to come into in the Sooner. Obviously, you're out of Houston, and you're joining a conference where the barrier to entry is pretty low with some of the other teams here, but the ability for you to find a playoff spot if you invest and you make great gains is pretty high. I mean, look at what LC has done after coming up from D3. We go from one side of Texas to the other, one of a few HBCUs in this conference. The Texas College Steers, probably the hardest team in the NAIA to Google search, because if you search Texas college football, what you get are not Steers, you get Longhorns.
Yeah, might be a bit confusing, but this was another team who you kind of just hinted at it, the barrier to entry for this conference sometimes. Was not a great season for them last year. Obviously, had a little bit on the offensive side of the ball going for them, but you do return a couple all conference guys at least to bolster what you got going on in wide receiver Derek Cooper and D lineman Tylen Lewis.
Yeah, and you did have a better season last year. You were up in terms of SP plus, even though you were down 14 spots on offense. You held serve on defense, and again, like we've said, in a year where defenses across the NAI got worse, that helps you kind of stay where you have been. And we're going to see a very recurring theme across the Sooner. They're pretty much returning everybody. And I don't know, we can get into a debate over whether that's always a good thing, because if you only have freshmen, sophomores, and some juniors, I start to wonder if you're a program that's been around for a while, why you only have freshmen, sophomores, and a couple juniors. Next, as we go from Texas to Arkansas, another HBCU in Arkansas Baptist, the Buffaloes, 3-7 last year, was a good year for them. hadn't been that long since this was a junior college.
Yeah, honestly, an impressive season last year, all things considered. And this is a team that, while the SP Plus rankings aren't very kind to them, there's a lot of balance there, and you return a whole lot of people. Maybe not anybody that made the all conference list, but you do have pretty much all of your main pieces coming back.
Yeah, you do have your quarterbacks are coming back. Anton Clayton is your leader there. You're going to have to find some spots at running back. Atavian Ray is going to have to step up. You got most of your linebackers back. A majority of your DBs just going to have to find someone to move them around on the defensive line. But this is a team where we could see um, some upward trajectory on. It's going to be this conference is a little weird because you've got these two teams down here at the bottom that are new-ish to the conference. One of them that is been around for a while. You kind of want to start to raise the floor while you're raising the ceiling here, and you got to make sure you can do that. Next up, we have the Wayland Baptist Pioneers team that has always been, again, um, how do they say it in the races? That it's a very anonymous team.
Yeah, they're strange. I don't, the bottom of this conference is always hard to talk about because I feel like with where a lot of them are at, it's kind of this similar spot of like, oh, there's a lot of guys coming back, but also like this is a squad that won 2 or 3 games last season. Um, and it's kind of rinse and repeat until, you get some fresh blood in there. Um, Injecting some life into the program one way or another. I think these bottom four programs it's going to be interesting to watch because they're all very similar. And Wayland Baptist is no different.
Yeah, you do bring back one all Sooner in Cory McCoy. You'll lose a couple of all Sooner guys though, but you do return a lot, and so I just don't. With the bottom of this conference, these bottom four teams, I just don't know where you're going to land these guys. It's going to be difficult. Um, what to figure out who's going to be the basement and who is going to be kind of trying to get up into the mid tier out of these four. It's a weird position to be in, honestly.
Yeah.
Next up here is a team that you hate seeing a team go through a whole bunch of turmoil, but that's kind of been what's going on for the next team up here. As I fixed the stats because I realized that had them a little bit wrong, and they would look completely wrong. Very professional program here we run. That's going to be a team with a new name, the Nelson Lions. Make it eventually. New name, new head coach. Greg Ellis was only there for 1 year, kind of to get through some turbulent waters. Renaming the whole school after the minister who started the whole program here. A little bit of a color change, going from that yellow to a silver look. Greg Ellis, well, I'll say this. When Jerry Jones calls and offers you a job, you say yes.
Yeah, that would do it.
It's just like we never sit here and say, "Oh man, these coaches don't have any loyalty." The first big school that comes to grab them, they're gone. Well, of course they are, because the money is so much different
Yeah,
up there. I'm
it's
never going to
different
sit
tiers.
here. And when the Cowboys call and say, hey, would you like to be the assistant D line coach? Oh, Greg Ellis, Hall of Famer with the Dallas Cowboys. If you're Greg Ellis, you say yes.
Yeah,
You
hard to
say,
turn that down.
yeah. And so you've got a new head coach if you're Nelson. Uh, Jared Hudgens promoted from within the defensive coordinator, which is good. I mean, this has been a team that for the last few years has been very good on defense. Obviously, last year, not so much. But overall, it's been a defensive squad. And, you're losing a few out of that defense with Gibson and Hargraves and McLean at each level of your defense. But I feel like you've got a chance here to make some noise in this conference.
I think so. And I think with the help of the teams behind you kind of automatically raising your status of where you are in the conference, there's a few middle teams in here that Nelson could be competing with that they could get the best of. And we've kind of seen this from them. They've been building up to become this really, really honestly good football program. We saw it last year when, they were winning some games and doing some stuff we hadn't seen them do before. So it's an exciting spot. Obviously, there is some change, which sucks, but you promote an internal guy that can kind of help along what was building last year. And I think you're in a good spot.
Yeah, you're bringing back most of your offense and half of your defense. It's a good spot, especially for a defensive head coach, because you've got that offense to kind of rely on while you build your defense back up. That's kind of your bread and butter. You know what you're getting. You know what you're coaching on your defense. You can leave the offensive coaching a little bit to your assistant coaches.
Mhm.
This might be a good year for Nelson. We'll have to see. But we will step aside here and we will hear a word from our friends at AdCraft.
So you want to create and sell custom merch for your team or business. That's exciting, but where do you begin? How much inventory should you order? How do you distribute orders? AdCraft has your answers. Streamline the way you offer custom merch by utilizing our risk-free web store service. We ship directly to each customer, and we have the fastest turnaround in the game. Raise funds for your team or get merch to your employees and patrons. Contact AdCraft today, and let's bring your merch to life.
Absolutely the best in the business. We talk about them week after week. Had a great tweet today about how a web store works. I encourage you to go back and take a look at that today as we're recording, rather. Go take a look at that if you're interested in how all that works. It is a lazy coach's dream. They come up with the ideas. They show them to you. You say, yes, that works. They make the web store. You tell everyone about it. They handle the customer service. They handle the shipping. They handle everything. All you got to do is sit back and look like a genius. So you do almost nothing, and they make you look like a genius. I find absolutely no problems with this. Contact our friends at AdCraft and make yourself look like a genius is the upshot of that ad read. So we go from a bunch of teams in Texas and we go up to Oklahoma Panhandle State, an actual team in the Sooner State.
It feels like with all of the chaos and stuff going on below them, like this Oklahoma Panhandle State team seems very normal. Like they're very balanced, they're very even keel compared to what we've seen already. Like this is a team that's in a good spot, has already been making strides and improving kind of year by year. And I like on paper what they bring back. Obviously, the main piece of that being running back CJ Campbell.
Yeah, and this is a team that improved a lot on defense last year. Cameron Dickerson being a big part of that, but obviously you'll lose him at that linebacker position. He was good for 14 and a half tackles for loss. But like Matt said, there's a lot to like about Oklahoma Panhandle State. Almost all your offense and most of your defense is coming back. the only spot where you're not returning literally everyone is wide receiver in terms of your offense. And you return most of your defensive backs and majority everywhere else, but that tells you they were running a lot of defensive backs. There's some oddities like that in these last few teams where it's like, you mean you had 4 defensive linemen all season? That's a bold strategy, Cotton. But yeah, Oklahoma Panhandle State's definitely someone to watch out for. The Aggies might catch someone by surprise. We'll have to see. And then next up, I think this is the last HBCU on the list, the Langston Lions. A team that when we started in 2018 were the class of the Sooner, and now are having to play a little catch up. But honestly, I think they can do it.
I think they can too. They're in a decent spot here. Obviously, having a bit of a down year compared to what you would like to see if you're a Langston player or coach. But this is the first time that I look at this Langston team on paper in the past couple of years, and there's not something that jumps out to me as like humongous red flag.
Yeah.
I feel like in years past we've seen some massive holes in this team, and I think while they slipped a little bit, they have enough coming back, and they were more even keel enough between offense and defense to where they got some stuff working.
Yeah, this is a team that replaced its quarterback, had Larry Harrington in 22, go into a new guy, Rennie Martin, in 2023. I think they actually played a couple of guys at quarterback that saw good time for them. But you have 3 pass catchers who were all conference, including your leading wide receiver, who is a tight end. Levon Williams led the team with 615 yards and 9 touchdowns.
That'll do it.
And 18.1 yards per catch as a tight end.
Mm-hmm.
That feels very University of Miami from like the late aughts kind of deal. With a couple of their tight ends, they had their gapping teams being mismatch problems. I think Levon Williams is going to be someone who you want to keep a look at, and obviously Kevin Allen and Ivory Wheelwright there on the edge. Once your team sort of collapse in and try to pay a lot of attention to your tight end, it's really going to open up your one-on-one matchups on the outside and make your reads a whole heck of a lot easier for your quarterback.
Absolutely.
And it's a team that is, again, returning a whole heck of a lot. Your biggest spot that you have to cover is your defensive backs. You're only returning a majority of those defensive backs, but you're returning all of your D-line and most of your linebackers, which means that if you can generate pressure, you can take a little bit of the pressure off of your defensive secondary. This is a Langston Lions team that could definitely make a large jump in 24. And keeping to a theme of orange and blue, much to my chagrin, we have the Louisiana Christian Wildcats, a banner year for LC, making it to the playoffs, 9-2, 21st in SP+, up 10 overall, up a 50 spots on offense from 59th to 9th. And you're down 15th on defense, but when you improve by 50 spots on offense, you can drop a little on defense, and it's okay.
Yeah, this was an LCU team that me and you talked about, I think, last year. Is like they are right there.
Yeah.
They're right there, and they're scary. And I don't even think we predicted them to be as good as they were last year. They absolutely blew it out of the water with their expectations and what we've seen from them as a program in recent years. I will say, having a new head coach in the mix does make this interesting. And another thing that makes this interesting is how much you have leaving from last year in your incredible run.
Yeah. We'll start with what you got coming back. LC was actually, Matt, both of our dark horse picks last year. I just went back and looked at it. We believed and we were rewarded. there's a laundry list coming back. That's 3 offensive linemen, 1 first teamer, 2 second teamers in Arian Randall, Xavier Jackson, and Jaden Washington. You bring back Dalen Charles and Sammy Feaster. Those were just absolute workhorses for you last year. Feaster was good for 29.7 yards every time he touched the doggone ball. Charles was good for 778 yards last year. You've got a new head coach coming in from the high school who is an LC grad. So you've got ties there, mama calls, but the 2 big names up there up top, Sal Palermo, Devin Briscoe. Those are tough to swallow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were instrumental last year to this team and how it functioned. And replacing a quarterback is never easy, especially when you're a new head coach doing so. I also think that losing your first team all conference tight end, linebacker, DB, also worth mentioning. It looks like from every level of this team, there's at least one leader of some kind stepping down from last year. And I think that can be hard to fill sometimes in between seasons as you look at senior leadership and like how your locker room's doing. Um, and they have quite a few spots to fill in that sense too. I think this is a team that is very good and will be very good again. I just am hesitant to put a lot of stock in them like I did last year.
Yeah, I mean, it is a team that returns few on offense. So you're talking about below 40%. No quarterback really to speak of that played. A minority of your running backs production and about half of your running back or your wide receivers, about half of your D line, a minority of your defensive backs for a full half of your defense. And there's a lot of questions in Pineville right now. And you know, good for LC. Head coach goes and leverages a playoff berth into a nice coaching gig elsewhere at a higher level. Again, we're not going to sit here and say that we wouldn't make the very same decision.
Yeah.
Because we probably would. But it's just something that you have to look out for. And Matt, that idea of a new head coach, it's really a theme in the Sooner because you go to Tex West and you've got another new head coach. Joe Prudhomme steps down. Brad Sherrod comes over from UTSA, the Roadrunners. And we'll have to see because this was a really good Tex West team. You were up 8 spots overall on SP Plus. You had a great offense and a good defense, and you just fall a little shy of winning the conference outright.
Mm-hmm. This is a team that's in a very good spot. It's similar talking about them like we talked about Louisiana Christian, but I feel like with what they have returning, it's much more. It looks better on paper for them, I think, than it does for Louisiana Christian.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a guy like Ernie Caesar, that's coming back. That's 763 yards of rushing. AJ Bob, 774 yards receiving, and you do return Carson Rogers, your starting quarterback. It's always a big deal there. But the thing you're really losing are 2 all-conference first-team offensive linemen and 1 second-teamer between Svoboda, Bonner, and Lopez Williams. And if you're going to want to lean on Caesar to run your offense through, like they did a couple years ago, you're going to have to figure that one out.
Mm-hmm.
They do return, however, almost the entire offense, if not the entire offense, and almost all of the defense. Really, the only thing that looks weird with them is the D line, where they have most.
Yeah. And I think as a new head coach, this is the roster you want to be playing with in your first year because I don't want to say there's going to be room for error, but you get a nice talent cushion against a lot of these teams.
That is true. But the last team up is the team in the desert, the Ottawa Spirit, 8-1, 7-1 last year. A very good year for Ottawa, and they were actually 8th in SP Plus. My bad on that. Matt, this is a team that neither you nor I gave the time of day to at this point last year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
none.
And this is why. It looks about the same as last year. It looks like you have very little coming back between quarterback Luke Giron, Stephen Bradford, running back Isaiah Cotton. Then you see this, and it's 3 wide receivers that are leaving, 2 offensive linemen, a whole host of everyone. But Matt, one of these days I'm going to stop underestimating Ottawa when their all sooner leaving looks like this.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat because I look at this and I feel similarly to them this year as I did last year in the preseason, which is like, this will be a good team. I just don't think they have, with all the holes they have to fill, like, they're not in a great spot. But we said it last year and we both looked stupid because of that. Um, I don't know. This is always one of the better teams in the Sooner. They're always competitive. They're always vying for playoff spots. And with the way the rest of the conference behind them looks, I can't count them out, but they're also not necessarily my favorite team, kind of in the top tier here. I don't know. It's weird again with them.
Yeah, it is. So let's take a look at what we're picking. And I, for one, am not going to look stupid twice. I learned my lesson from last year when Ottawa took off like a rocket and was good from the opening snap, and I went, huh, I was very wrong here. One of the best teams in the nation, and I thought they would beat doo-doo last year. I was wrong. I am not going to make the same mistake twice, and I am picking Ottawa to win the conference. And you know what? If they only get a share of it like they did last year, I'm still taking that as a win.
You know, I'm in the same boat as you, as I have to apologize, Ottawa fans, for last year. But unfortunately, I will not be learning my lesson because I'm taking Texas Wesleyan. This is a Texas Wesleyan team who I thought was there last year, and for the most part, they pretty much were. I think just with everything they have coming back, I know they have a new head coach, but that roster is so solidified. There's so much talent on it that I feel like they'll be all right. I feel like they'll run the table unless we get some Sooner shenanigans, which we have gotten in recent years.
This is going to be a conference where it's going to be late October, early November, and we're going to be looking up tiebreaker rules for what feels like the 7th year in a row.
Mm.
And this one likes to bite me on tiebreaker rules because it's whoever's the top ranked team at the last poll,
Mm.
which leaves it up to the coach's interpretation, which, well, not always wrong. It's usually you have 3 teams within 6 or 7 spots of each other, and I don't know who they're going to pick.
Yep.
Matt, for my dark horse, I'm going to go non-traditional because why the heck not? My dark horse is LCU. I don't think they're going to fall near as far as we think they're going to this year. I think having a coach that came in early on in the cycle that has been able to kind of make an early imprint in a spot where it is hard for other teams to get to. That spot in Pineville is difficult. It's a hostile environment. They hate it when I say that it's a hostile environment, but everyone else says it is, so I trust everyone else. The external factors here tell me that LCU is going to be not as bad as the turnover on roster would lead you to believe. Even when they were the first and second year in the NAIA and they had no business winning games, they would still steal a game from someone or another and ruin someone's season. LCU is going to go back a little bit and play spoiler and is going to, at the end of the season, be in contention for another Sooner Conference title.
Sounds like fun. I like the reasoning for that pick, but talking about this conference makes me want some normalcy because it's very chaotic. And if you remember, the team that I described as normal was Oklahoma Panhandle. So I'm going with them as my dark horse. I think with everything they return, I think with the slow and steady climb up, they've been kind of chipping away in the middle of this conference for a bit. I think they're in a perfect position to move on up, move themselves into that top three, top four conversation at the end of the season. I like what they have coming back. They're one of the few teams of this conference, it seems like, that didn't have head coach turnover, which is another thing going in their favor. It's hard for me to count them out this year.
That is actually another reason why I honestly picked Ottawa. Is of the top three, like really clear cut teams at the top of the Sooner, they're the only ones that's not turning over a head coach.
Yeah,
and
true.
Mike Nesbitt's a darn good coach. So let's see how this places them then in our power rankings. Average SP plus. Hey, they're not at the bottom, which is a nice improvement from last year, up a point from last year, and up decimal places in terms of where they were average-wise last year. In terms of the standard deviation, well, they are dead last in that, which is what happens when you have a team that's ranked 8th and a team that's in the 90s.
Yep.
That's going to happen. And to be fair, they had a 30-plus standard deviation last year. That's just kind of who this conference is.
I'm a big fan of how far the gap is between them and the AAC.
Yeah, that's it's pretty absurd there. And then overall, that puts them 11th, and that feels right.
Yeah,
You've got a lot of top teams, you've got a lot of bottom teams, and that does not, by either of our very rudimentary metrics, bode well for you. It's kind of reminiscent of the ACC.
Yeah, I'd say so.
But we got one more team. Will Kaiser be able to pull up the Sun and at least get it in a respectable spot? I mean, last year the Sun finished 3rd.
Yeah, they're in a good spot.
From the bottom.
Yeah.
So we shall see. Matt, I've been waiting for this next slide since we started because you know what? We got a new patron.
Oh, wow.
Heck yeah.
Look at that.
Casey Willison being in the third column club, making the third column club a thing again. Thanks, Casey, for joining up. Guys, if y'all want to be a part of what we do, be like Casey. Join our Patreon. $1 a month gets you access to what we do, a little bit of our little bit of behind the scenes with our watch-alongs and all that stuff. You get that early for some of the stuff, and then you get stuff that other people don't get. So, our patrons, I'm going to go from the bottom. Give Casey first billing here. Our patrons are Casey Willison, Jose Trujillo, Zach Lance, Sean Chamberlain, Todd Nix, Charles A. Flowers, Jason Crawford, Ryan, Dylan Gonzalez, Nathan Moore, Dale Norton, Julie Lout, Stephen Cutler, Nate Soapbeer, Julian Shager, Brian Shake, Steve Speakman, Justin Hoffman, Tyler Pierce, Kyle Gregory, Hayden Frigno, Nick Ryan, Marty Seabolt, Brett A. Swellen, Jerry Quickle, Fred Christensen, Jeremy Vobble, Roger Meyer, Bob Boone, and DSU Gunn. Matt, we have one more preview to go. And I'm going to tell you, my Thomas Nighthawks might not have been very good last year. But we got a lot of freshmen and sophomores.
There you go. That's all you need.
That's all you need. And we run the triple. So it'll be fun as we figure out who's who and talk about the Sun Conference, the reigning champions of the NAIA in football, and the runners-up in flag. Take it. So until next time, we will see y'all on the Twitter feed. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the NAIF Ball Podcast, powered by AdCraft USA. Be sure to contact them for all your custom apparel, merch, and uniform needs. Thanks also to our newest sponsor, Telemetry Sports. If you enjoyed the show, subscribe to the podcast and to our YouTube channel, and leave us a review if you're listening on Apple Podcasts. As always, if you'd like to support what we do, head over to patreon.com/NAIAFball and become a patron. We can't do what we do without our sponsors and listeners like you.